Okay, anyone have anything they'd like to share or comment on or ask any questions this morning?
Yes, thank you, Master Tim. I had an experience this morning where I felt like my Mingmen was a solution to all my problems, and it was pretty great. I had my attention on extension because that's what you were talking about, and I was like, where am I extending from? And then it felt like I was extending in all directions, and I was trying to figure out where was it coming from, and it felt like it was coming from my Mingmen, and then it just felt like sort of unlimited leverage, like I could lift, like my arms were coming from there, but it's like the movement could just keep going forever, and I was feeling my eyes extending from my Mingmen, and also feeling fatigued and feeling like, wow, but if I just focus on my Mingmen, it just felt like unlimited energy. I mean, I felt like I had a felt experience of why it's called the gate of life. I was like, oh, I've been focusing on my fatigue, but if I just keep my focus on my Mingmen, then it's just regenerative. So yeah, that was pretty amazing. And then feeling also a sensation where the Mingmen and the Dantian were the same. It was like one point, and it just happened to be I don't really have words for it, but it gave me a different experience of my Dantian. And then when we were circling the energy at the end, I have felt like that hasn't really landed, but then I felt like today, oh, if I circle the energy toward my Mingmen, then it actually lands in my Dantian. So yeah, it was a great, thank you.
You're welcome. When you say circle your energy, what do you mean? Are you talking about the spiraling
at the end?
At the end, when you're gathering the chi in your dantian.
Yes.
Got it. Okay, yeah. Call it spiraling instead of circling, because it has to spiral into your dantian, and as I said, actually into your Mingmen. There's a point in front of the Mingmen that correlates to dantian, and so it's like right in front of the lumbar. And so it needs to spiral from the dantian into that point.
Thank you.
And so when you say circulating, that can land differently in your unconscious, and it has to spiral in. So
thank you, Master Ken.
You're welcome. Okay, that's good. Anything else you want to share? Or was that it?
Yeah, well, I also I meditated before class today, and I had a release, and it just was really interesting to me how different the experience was of doing the Gold Series already having been emptied out. I mean, more stuff obviously was moving through, but it was a whole other landscape. So I just was really appreciating that today too.
Yeah, you know, it's kind of interesting. The Goal Series, has to be seen as a meditation, not as an exercise, because if it's not done from a meditative state, it's actually ineffective. So that's actually kind of interesting, because the Goal Series is a it's a way of bringing awareness or meditative awareness to each part of your body. And so that's the purpose of the goal series, to bring a meditative awareness to each part of the body. So that's a reason why we start. But sometimes that can be difficult, but it's actually one of the reasons why you want to start with third eye and then spread that. But as you're doing the same feeling that you have when you meditate, you want to actually bring in as you're doing the goal series. And if you can't do it, actually doing some meditation before so that your mind settles is actually a really good idea. It's actually one of the reasons why the goal series actually keeps growing as you do it, because of that meditative quality. And it's if tai chi, the form, is meditation and movement, the goal series is exploration in meditative state. It's an exploration in meditation. And it's kind of interesting because when you do it, you get to hear, or you get to have the realizations of a day. Like you get to see what was going on in your life. And so most of the time when people think of meditation, people think that meditation is where you just clunk out and you don't have any thoughts. What people don't realize is that that's actually what comes at the end of having properly meditated, where when you are in stillness, then the things that were caught up in your system from fear, so like throughout the day we hold tension, and tension holds fear, and fear causes all kinds of emotions. It's basically, and the reason that was actually the tension was caused because we couldn't move in a certain way. And so as we learn how to move and elongate our body back to where it needs to be, and so basically elongating and lengthening, yoga, it's actually most people think you need to become more flexible. That's a misnomer. Actually, all we're really trying to do is if your muscles relax properly and they were at their full length, then that's actually, what allows us to be flexible, actually just claiming the flexibility that's already there. And so flexibility is actually not becoming more flexible. To me, that's a misnomer. Basically, it's claiming your flexibility that's probably a lot more accurate in terms of describing it, because once your body relaxes and gains its full range of motion, the muscle elongates to its fullest extent, then your muscles don't need to be any longer. They're as long as they need to be. So when you actually help someone relax, they fall into the splits that same day. They can do the bridges on the same day. The more difficult thing is actually having the person let go of that tension. And so, and of course, people don't realize that if, let's say, for instance, you fall into splits, that has nothing to do with your legs, per se. That actually has more to do with if someone wants to get that level of range of motion, people don't realize that actually is like the entire spinal column and the muscles in your ribs and your chest, all the way to your head and even your arms relaxing. And that in conjunction with the muscles in your legs relaxing, because to be able to do something like a split is an overall movement. And so most people think in terms of actually lengthening the movements, the muscles in your legs to get the splits. That's a terrible idea. That's actually what I was first taught when I was studying external martial arts in the very beginning, that I had to basically tear my muscles and make the muscles longer. And actually, that's not good at all, because It slows down your muscle. I mean, your muscle fibers actually get long and you have scar tissue buildup in your muscles. And that actually impedes the mobility and the response of your muscle. And you essentially create an unhealthy muscle. And then when I started studying the Taoist models, basically said, you have all the length you need. You just need to learn how to use the length that you have. And because of your tension, you're not able to do that. That was a really life-changing model, because all of a sudden I was enough. I didn't need to change. You know, we don't think about the implications, but you know, before I needed to change to be enough, because before I saw myself as a very inflexible individual. You know, and what I didn't realize is actually what's more true is I was a tense individual. I just didn't realize that. And as my body started opening, people started saying, "Oh, you're flexible," and I realized, oh, it has nothing to do with flexibility, right? And so I kind of wanted to just talk about it from that perspective. And so as you're starting with the meditative state, all actually you're doing is you're releasing the tension that you're holding. And when that happens, something very interesting happens, which is your mind, when your tension releases and the emotions that we're holding in our muscles release, then our mind becomes empty. Naturally, our mind becomes empty. We don't have to try and meditate to be empty. Actually, as a matter of fact, meditation, the best definition of meditation that I've come across is to stay in observation while abstaining from evaluation or without reaching an evaluation. Of course, you know, we can't not have realizations, but as we're observing, what happens is we stop at the realization that we have, and we try and make a conclusion and reach a conclusion sooner so we can solve the problem sooner. And that's the entire struggle. And if you look at really well-developed meditative models, it talks about how you should just let the thoughts go and just let them pass by like clouds in the sky. And when you stay in that, in meditation, actually, eventually at some point, your mind empties. And that's basically all the charge that was in your system from just relaxing and your spine straightening, because it says, you know, the instructions for meditation is to keep your spine straight. And as you do that, as your spine straightens, you start releasing the tension in your spine. And as that happens, your system starts emptying out. Now, if you add movement to that, then the release becomes more profound, or can be more profound. And you start actually having a very profound sense of understanding as to how the tension actually started accumulating. As they release, you start seeing the things that you're holding and why. And it's almost like you go through an entire journey. And then by the time all those are released, naturally you become present without any thoughts, without any forcing. And to experience that entire terrain is very powerful, because you see the nature of what it means to be empty, and that just naturally happens as long as we process through, and as long as we're relaxed, and as long as we move through the day without tension. And so once you start experiencing that benefit, if you will, you naturally start seeking a life where you have less and less tension through the whole day. And if you have tense interactions, you start studying how you could have an interaction that's not as tense. how it could be harmonious. And you could say that that is the study of Tai Chi, to be free of tension and how to live a life where you are free of tension. And so anyway, so since you were talking about the goal series and the meditation, I wanted to kind of actually just show why that was so effective. And that's actually a really good thing to do. And I wanted to encourage you to continue. And even if you don't get a chance to have the same attitude that the goal series is really a meditation in self-exploration. And as you do that, don't try and stay empty, but just observe what comes up and let it pass. And as you go through it, naturally as it releases, as you're not trying to solve anything, but as you just stay in observation, it just releases out of you. And you'll be surprised that you have all the solutions that you're looking for, that all the solutions that you were looking for before most likely were irrelevant. And you are in a state of being that you wanted to be. And you feel yourself in balance. So, and then kind of just wrapping up the Mingmen, that's a great discovery. And you are correct. You're supposed to lengthen out from the Mingmen. So you're supposed to lengthen down from the Mingmen. And so the tradition says that imagine that you're being pulled down. There's a weight attached to your tailbone and you're being pulled down, and then you're like a hangman hanging from the top. So your Mingmen lengthens, and there is a point, but the reason there's so much energy is because we're no longer holding tension. So we tend towards a Mingmen because, and you know, it's actually common sense as to why they would do that, but that's the center of our gravity. So if anything, so that's a center, because it's a center of our gravity, everything scrunches towards our center of gravity, because that's where we move from a skeletal and a muscular perspective. And so my Taoist teachers used to say that the Dantian is your center where it stabilizes you. And the movement center is your Mingmen. All movements come from the Mingmen. But all stability comes from your Dantian. So it's kind of interesting because I used to wonder, why is it that the center of power is supposed to be your Dantian? But then why is the center of movement from the Mingmen, and why aren't they the same? And that's the reason, actually. When you move, actually you move, it's your skeleton that moves. We don't think about it that way, but actually it's our skeleton that moves. And so, but your muscular center converges in your Dantian. So your muscles tense around your Dantian. So that's why they come towards your Dantian. And they come all the way to the front of the Mingmen. And so that's why that's a power center. Anyways, so having it release, have it lengthen out from the Mingmen, you're not holding all that energy. You're not wasting it into your tension. So you have enough energy. And by the time your Mingmen becomes tired, that means that you've expended too much. The reason I want to explain that is because I don't want you to look at it as an infinite source of energy. It feels like, I mean, it is in some sorts an infinite source of energy, but it's actually better to look at it as a balanced indicator of your source of energy.
Mm.
When you first start releasing from your Mingmen, it will feel like an infinite source. Why? Because you had all that tension built up, releasing. And so now all that energy seems to circulate through your whole system.
Mm-hmm.
So it will feel like an infinite source of energy. And what people do, which is, also something I did, is I try to go with that infinite sense of energy, and it actually runs out.
Mm.
So, okay. Anyways, just some context and perspective on some of the discoveries that you've made.
That was awesome. Thank you, Master Kim. Yeah, I appreciate you pointing out the piece about the Gold Series being a meditation, because I've had that orientation, but listening to you talk about it, I realized I think the performance agenda was sort of clashing with that,
Mm-hmm.
piece about it being a meditation. And in the meditation that I did beforehand, it was just an exploration. So there wasn't that counter force against it, and I wasn't fighting myself. It could just release. But it's really helpful to just have awareness of, oh, right, like that's why it hasn't felt as easy to release and move through the Gold Series, because I'm attached to a certain kind of result.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting. It's difficult. If you meditate, it's very true that you have release and you feel better after the release. And so it's very easy to become attached to healing ourselves or fixing ourselves or having that release, where the meditation isn't the priority, but as you said, the performance aspect or the healing aspect is the priority, where we're trying to get ourselves to feel and get ourselves a certain way. And I think it takes a little bit of time before we can let that go and realize that actually, really what we wanted to begin with is just actually the state of meditation. And so we're just wanting to focus on that and let everything deepen just our state of meditation, because that's what we wanted to begin with anyways. But I think it takes a little bit of time to understand that, like experientially, not intellectually. I think intellectually it all makes sense. But when you start it and you've actually ever experienced, especially people experience it the first time, oftentimes it's not uncommon for people have very drastic different experiences, but it's not uncommon for people to experience a certain sense of euphoria when they do the Gold Series the first time. And then after the first time, they lose it. And the reason they lose it is because the first time they were in a meditative state, they weren't expecting anything, no problem. And then the experience is so profound that they try and regain it, and that's what ruins it. And almost the rest of the training is to just get back to this place where you realize, oh, I need to be in a meditative state. So, okay, now
that makes so much sense. Thank you so much, Master Kim.
You're most welcome. Okay, I am running late, so I need to get going. So I won't be able to take any further questions for today. But I wish the rest of you a great meditative state, and let the rest of your day deepen your meditation, where your state of meditation is your priority. Have a great day.
Yeehaw.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Master Kim.
Welcome.
Thank you, Master Kim.
Welcome. Okay. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.